you can't come to terms with that there's a creator, or you can't come to terms with the Christian faith?
That there's a creator.
Okay,
Yeah.
why is that, if I may ask?
I mean, like,
Because there's a lot of people that leave Christianity because they never understood the Christian faith,
but they believe in a God.
and they believe in God, but it's just because Christianity made their brain like it made them confused. So they're like, screw it, I don't want to do anything, I'm atheist.
No,
do you kind of fall into that category or no?
No.
Oh, okay.
I don't believe in like a higher being or like a creator kind of thing.
Okay, let me tell you this. The reason why we're Muslim, by the way, we believe in Islam. You know about Islam?
I know a bit. I never really like looked into it too much.
Islam is basically submission. Islam literally means submission to the one God, one creator. The reason why there must be a creator is because everything in creation is created.
Okay.
Like, for example, the universe had a beginning, correct?
Yeah, sure.
Which they call the Big Bang. It started, and it's currently expanding. So anything that is expanding, getting bigger, and started, by definition, is limited.
Okay. So like you're saying like there's an edge to it, so...
Yeah, it's if something's expanding, it rules out it being, for example, eternal. Because some people say, I don't believe in a God. I think that this has just always been here.
Okay.
You know what I mean? The reason why that's not the case is because we have evidence that, no, the universe actually did start. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The question is, what started the universe? That's the bigger question. You know what I mean?
I get what you're saying, yeah.
And that's why there must be, you don't have to call it God right now, but there must be an independent source where all of these dependencies and these dependent things came from.
I get what you're saying.
Do you agree?
I mean,
like, for example, like something can never come from nothing.
Oh yeah.
You know, no matter how many times you add 0, you'll never reach 1.
Yeah.
You agree with that?
Yeah.
So the universe started, right?
Okay, so you're saying because it wasn't always there, because it started.
Exactly.
There has to be something that intervened.
There must be something that started it.
Okay. So I mean,
you follow my logic?
I get what you're saying. I've heard like a counter argument to it.
Go ahead.
Like the idea being, something may have started that universe, but if you...
You're trying to go for like the infinite regress of universes.
No, not that. I know what you're talking about on that one.
Yeah.
But the idea being, well, if there was a God that created the universe, well, then this God has always been, right?
Of course, yeah.
So, I mean...
What's the issue with that idea?
Well, I mean, like, who's to say maybe that there's not more than one God? Like, I mean, like...
Well, the issue of God is a side point. What we have to come to agreement first is the more basic points that we can agree on. Like, for example, the universe started. We can agree on that.
Okay.
We can agree that something can't come from nothing.
Sure. So you're saying, like, because of the paradoxical nature of the universe at a starting point,
there
must be a creator.
Of course. I mean, I wouldn't even say it's paradoxical. I think that's how it is.
I can get where you're coming from.
You know what I mean? Everything that starts has a prior cause or a causation or a effect put onto it. That's Islamic theology, that the universe was created by God Almighty, or the entity, the independent entity.
I can see what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's the point. So do you agree with that point? That there must be an independent source that everything came from? Because if it wasn't independent, like some people say, okay, let's say that they ascribe to they call it a multi-universe theory, where this universe came from a dying universe, and that came from that universe, and that came from that universe.
It just keeps restarting itself.
Yeah, so the reason why that will never happen is because that's an infinite regress of dependent things. So let's say that this universe would never have came into existence until the universe before that died. And that wouldn't have came into existence until the one before it died. And if you went like that ad infinitum, we would never reach the current point we are at today. You see what I mean? Like for example, if I were to say, okay, I'm gonna push you, but I'm only gonna push you when the guy behind me pushes me.
Okay.
And he's only gonna push me when the guy behind him pushes him. Ad infinitum, no one would ever push.
Because there's no starting point kind of thing.
Exactly.
Okay.
You see what I mean? So I would never have pushed you because it would have never reached me because it's ad infinitum. But you see what I mean? But if there was an independent, the first that pushed, then everything would naturally follow.
I get what you're saying. Yeah,
You-
using that logic, you avoid the paradoxical nature of like the infinities and
of course.
the regression.
And that's why we say Islam, it's not blind faith, like for example in Christianity. Like in Christianity, they say, oh, they go to the priest's father, why does it say so and so in the Bible? He says, have faith.
It just does, yeah.
It just does, has faith. You know what I mean? No, Islam, we encourage questions. We encourage people to think, use their brains. Islam is very coherent. When we say we believe in God, God and logic that God created us with can never conflict.
Okay, yeah.
You know what I mean?
I get what you're saying.
And that's why Islam is very coherent. That there's one independent source, which is God Almighty. And He created everything in creation, including the universe, including time, space, humans, earth. And this God sent prophets and messengers to teach the people how to live. And Jesus Christ is one of those prophets and messengers. He raised the dead, cured the blind, all with God's permission, not His own permission, not His own power. You see what I mean?
I get what you're saying, yeah.
So do you agree with anything?
I mean, I see where you're coming from. Yeah.
Does that make more sense than what you were raised upon?
I mean, in the sense that you avoid like any like paradoxical things or that that just believe in it kind of thing. Yeah, it does make sense.
Yeah, like you would avoid the uncertainty of the atheist, because the atheist will never give you an answer of what was before the Big Bang, because what was before the Big Bang is outside the scope of science.
Yeah.
And the atheist only can refer to science for his belief.
Well, I mean,
like if I say what was before the universe to an atheist, what was before the universe can't be tested under a microscope. See what I mean? You would have to go into some type of metaphysics to try to understand this. And atheism, for the majority, depends on what they call naturalistic, the philosophy of being philosophical naturalism, which is confined to the five senses, empiricism.
Yeah, okay.
You know what I mean? So the atheist will never give you an answer. And science just tells us how things work, not why things work.
Well, I mean, I think that's part of like why I don't believe in a God. It's just like I'm a physicist. Like I'm a physics major. That's my whole thing.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily that like we can't explain the beginning, so there is no God.
It's not that you can't. It's that science doesn't give you a why or a why. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah.
Like for example, the science can tell you how photosynthesis is working. Correct?
Mm-hmm.
It will never tell you why it's working, because science doesn't attempt to answer those questions.
Oh yeah, because it just states the nature.
Yeah,
of things. It's how it is.
Exactly. It shows you the functions of the things and how they work.
Yeah.
That's the thing. We believe science and religion are complementary. That science, we need science as Muslims. You're a physicist. You know that the majority of what we have today in science actually came from the Islamic golden era of Andalusia and Spain.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I know what you mean. Yeah.
So science, we don't have a conflict with science. No, science agrees with the religion because like I told you earlier, God and logic cannot conflict.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? Because if God is true, therefore everything that logically is true will be true.
I get what you're saying. Yeah.
Exactly. So you wouldn't get the satisfaction from an atheist, nor would you get the satisfaction from the Christian. Why? Because the Christian believes in a Trinity, which is paradoxical by nature. 3 in 1, 1 in 3. It's a paradox.
It seems like it's meant to confuse people.
Of course. That's why the only coherent idea of what is that there is one independent source that from it stems everything dependent.
I get what you're saying.
You know what I mean?
I mean, like my main argument.
By the way, are you from the Philippines?
I'm half Mexican, half Filipino.
Interesting, very interesting. Okay.
What I was gonna say is like I think like the main reason I don't believe, like I get what you're saying.
Remind me your name. Sorry.
Robin.
Robin.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is like, yeah, we can't explain the beginning or like why things happen, right? Nature, like this science, pretty much just explains how they are.
Yes.
Right? But I think
and what's going on. Yes.
Yeah, I think for like people like me, not necessarily all atheists, but just more logic based in a sense. It's not about the why. I think we just kind of accept like this is the way it is, but you keep digging further and further, and you get more information. Like I mean, you look at the 1800s.
Yes.
They didn't know about like electrons and all this stuff,
yes.
right? So I mean, I think
Not you didn't even need to go that far back. Like go 50 years ago. They didn't know so many things. The X-ray was invented 50 years ago, I believe. There's so many things that science. The thing about science, right? Science is a tool, bro.
Yeah.
Science is not the thing. It's a tool to understand the thing.
That's already there. Yeah.
Exactly. Science is an ever-developing concept in nature. It's an ever-developing science, to where paradigm shifts happen all the time in science, in the scientific world. For example, when the scientific world switched from Newtonian physics to Einsteinian physics, correct?
Yeah.
The models. That was a big paradoxical shift in the scientific world. Imagine if, like, we told you today that, imagine if math had the same nature, where 2 plus 2 is 4 today, and in the future they figure out that 2 plus 2 is 5. It would be a huge issue. You couldn't base your whole, basically, you couldn't base all of your eggs in one basket on this ideology, because it's ever developing.
Yeah.
Not to say that a lot of science is false, no. But it's ever developing. We continually find new things.
Yeah.
That change our theories, that change our ideas. But when you leave science and you go to the realm of logic, for example, dependent things cannot exist without an independence. That's logical. That will never change.
Okay.
That will never develop.
Yeah.
Because we can base it off of first principles from the basics. Do you agree?
I get what you're saying, but again, I think kind of like finishing my previous thought. Like,
let this guy go.
So like, I get the idea of like,
put an exhaust on it or what?
Huh?
You put an exhaust on that or what?
Yeah. So
go ahead.
Oh, like I think the big thing that we keep kind of bringing up is
go ahead.
There was a beginning, so it implies that there is a creator, right?
Or independence.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
I just think that if we're gonna, this is my way of thinking about it.
Go ahead.
If we're going off of logic, right? If we want to avoid paradox.
Yes, and contradictions.
We want concrete answers. And I think that's why I never went towards a religion.
Yes.
Because it gives you an answer that has not necessarily proven itself.
Okay.
Yet, right? And I think that's the big distinction between that and science. It may be logical in a sense, but the science gives you the concrete, this is how it is.
But there are different proofs in the world. Like, scientific proof is one proof. There's different types of proofs. For example, deduction and induction. Those are proofs.
Yeah.
Like 2 plus 2 is 4 is true, correct?
Yes.
Is that using science?
Well,
you're in the realm of mathematics.
Yeah.
So you can't put 2 plus 2 under a microscope. It's theoretical. But it's still true. Do you understand? My point is that science is not your own or the empiricism that the naturalistic, the philosophical naturalism and empiricism that comes from only looking at science as proof is not the only proof. Because you have induction, you have deduction, you induce things, you deduce things, mathematics. These are different things that are true, but we use this different tool to get to those truths.
Yeah.
So similarly, logic is another type of proof. Like, for example, dependent and independent things. There can't be dependent things without the independent. That's the truth.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
I get what you're saying.
So so from what I said about the universe and how there's independent, what do you not agree with? Or do you agree with everything?
Well, I agree.
Don't be scared to because I know I speak to a lot of people that leave Christianity and they're kind of scarred from Christianity. Islam is not Christianity at all.
No, I know. Yeah, there's fundamental differences. Yeah,
huge differences. When you understand what Islam is saying, it completes the picture for you. Mm-hmm. See what I mean?
Yeah.
And I say that's the reason why there must be a God, or a creator, or an independent source. Because if there was nothing independent, it would be like the example I gave you of the push.
Where
nothing would start.
How do you get there? Yeah,
exactly.
I get what you're saying.
Exactly.
I mean,
so do you agree, or do you get what I'm saying, or do you agree what I'm saying?
I get what you're saying. I don't necessarily agree with it.
Because even if you agree that there's a creator, it doesn't necessarily put you in any faith.
No, I know that. So I understand where you're coming from. I just don't feel comfortable agreeing with something that I can't fully understand. Like the idea of a push, right?
Okay.
The infinite push. I mean, logically, it doesn't make sense to us. But the idea of infinity, I mean, we call it infinity because you can't quantify. I mean, there
Yes.
you can't write it down, right?
I mean, you
It's
can't
beyond the scope of-
physically, yes, but we can understand the concept,
Yeah.
which is no start, no end. We can understand that.
Yeah.
I like if I were to tell you write infinity, draw infinity on the board, you couldn't. Impossible, right?
Well, yeah, but I mean, some infinities. I mean, you could like. I mean, you go into like calculus, right? You do like these summations over infinite spaces, but you end up with finite.
But that's in the realm of this theoretical concept called mathematics. Those things in the real world do not apply. You agree? The only reason why they do that is so they can finish or they can do maths. But in the real world, there's no such thing as infinity plus 1 or minus 1. It's a paradox in the real world.
Well, again, I think it's the idea of what you're calling infinity, right? I mean,
yeah, the idea in the real world is that no start, no end. That's the idea in the real world. It might be different in mathematics, but when we talk about the real world, infinity means no start, no beginning.
Okay,
that's the concept. And if the universe is expanding, ever expanding, and had a big bang of starts, therefore the universe is a finite entity. You follow me, bro?
I get what you're saying, yeah.
And you acknowledging that makes sense and that there must be an independent, it doesn't push you in any cult or faith. No, you just acknowledge the truth of the standard. You see what I mean, bro?
Yeah.
It's over. A long time no see. Alhamdulillah.
I missed you, man.
Let me finish and then we'll talk to you.
I mean, it's just like, so I mean, like with the Big Bang, right? Like the idea of it having like a starting point. I mean, when we think of the Big Bang in like physics, it's not that everything was at a single point and then it expands from a one point.
I mean, that's what they call the singularity.
Well, I mean, but like if you look around in space, that would imply that there was a starting position, right?
Yeah.
That there is an origin on the coordinate system, but there is no origin, right? When you hear people explaining it, it's that all of space around you is expanded.
Yes.
Right. So there's like a common, you could call it like a quote, but I mean, everyone kind of says it differently.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the idea of that you are the center of the universe because space is expanding around everything, around everyone.
The reason why it's expanding around everyone is because whatever the number was, 13.9 billion years ago, it was in the center. And that's why they call it the singularity, where this mass exploded.
I think we don't tend to think of it as like a singular point. It's more that everything was condensed into a smaller region. But it's so.
No problem. You don't have to go to the details of the theory, but the theory says that the universe started, correct?
Well, yeah, like the modern physics.
Okay,
guess, yeah.
That's my point. If the universe started, and also we have a different theory, which is the expanding universe theory, it means this entity, the universe, is dependent. It means it's limited. It's not infinite. It's not eternal. The question is, what started the Big Bang?
I mean, we don't know.
But logically, you can come to a conclusion that, okay, it can be infinite. It can be an infinite regress of the multi-universe theory because of the push example I gave you.
Well, I mean, so, like, if you think about it, you say it can't be infinite because it has to have a start. But you think about, you can imagine
because it has a start.
Yes. But you can imagine maybe not an infinite amount of time ago, right? That doesn't logically make sense to a person, right? That's unfathomable.
Yes.
But could you imagine an infinite amount of time in the future? Right? That's a thing we commonly use in math and science, right? It's the idea of just an unfathomable amount of time later.
Yes.
Right? I mean, there's still time after it, right? It's infinite, but it's just so far in the future that the people there can't imagine where we are.
Yeah.
Right? It's so far. It's infinitely apart.
Even that, I wouldn't have a problem with it. But the problem is that it had a start. And nothing cannot produce something, logically. We can agree that something can come from nothing, right?
Okay.
Even if you were to ascribe to that theory that there's something called post-eternality, okay, no problem. What started the universe, bro? You still have this issue.
Well, I mean, I think I kind of mentioned that earlier. Is like I can agree that there may have been a start to like, the Big Bang and like modern physics and where we are now in this universe. And I mean, not ascribing to like the whole idea of like a dying universe creates a new one and the whole regression theory. But I think it's like the idea of maybe there was something that caused the initial Big Bang.
Yes.
It could be a crater.
It's not maybe. It's that we try to look at it from certainties. Like there either isn't or there is. Look in the realm of logic. Either something started this thing, or either something didn't. Correct? Two options.
Well, yeah, but so then, I mean, you mentioned it earlier, right? I mean, there are paradigm shifts in science and the way that we.
But I'm not speaking about science right now. I'm speaking about logic.
Well, yeah, but I mean, science is logic, right?
No, they're different fields. Logic says either yes or no to the beginning of the universe. Either it was caused or it wasn't caused. What's the third option?
I mean, well, yeah. I mean,
you see what I mean?
It did or it didn't.
Exactly. If it wasn't caused, you must explain how the universe or where this Big Bang was initiated from, which can never be possible because the scope of science can't go before the Big Bang.
I mean, but just because the scope of science today can't go beyond it, I mean, it doesn't mean that there is nothing beyond it. I mean, like, so the idea of if humans can't understand it, that doesn't mean that there is like a black and white or a binary decision, yes or no. I mean, you look at...
It's not that we can't understand it. It's just that, is this, you look at it from the logical possibilities, right? You say, okay, either it's always been here, or it was started. What, is there any other options?
Well, that's the thing is, I don't know, right? I mean, it may be something unfathomable like infinity, or I mean, in quantum physics, I mean, you've probably seen like the Oppenheimer meme, right? It's paradoxical, but it works, whatever. Yeah. I mean, you look at that, like...
But even quantum physics is is still a developing idea.
Exactly, right? So, I mean, that doesn't necessarily mean that we treated binary, right? Things are waves, things are particles.
Yeah.
We accept that there is a nature of both in reality, and that maybe one day we'll figure out what it truly is. I think that's
the reason why, Robin, that it's inconsistent is because we don't live our lives thinking that way. Like, imagine if I put you in a room, and on the wall, it was written, Robin is here, in paint. Would you ever think logically that this came about, this has always been here, or this came about by itself? Or would you logically think that this was designed by someone and painted by someone?
I mean, yeah, logically you would say it's been created by someone, right?
So why don't you extrapolate that from that minute example to the universe?
Well, because...
logically, when you walk in the room and you see something designed, you logically say that this was designed by someone. You'd never come to the conclusion as how the atheist comes to a conclusion today about the universe. Never. Because it goes against your intuition.
Well, so I mean, again, I think it just goes back to the fact that, like, as a science major, and like the way I grew up, right? I grew up with the idea of it has to have an explanation for me to like believe in it, right? That's the main reason I didn't ascribe to Christianity. It wasn't the idea of, I didn't like the idea.
It was paradoxal.
Well, yeah, but I also just, the main reason I didn't believe in a God in general, right? I didn't ascribe to any singular belief or, you know, any just a general belief of a higher being or something like that, was that I can't prove it, right? For me, there is no evidence. I mean, you mentioned that there's different kinds of evidence besides science.
Let me ask you this then, Robin. Do you believe your mother is your mother?
Well, yes, yeah.
Like 100%?
Yeah.
Have you ever done a DNA test?
No.
Okay. Have you ever seen documents, official documents from the day you were born in the hospital?
I mean, there's like a birth certificate and stuff.
That might have been forged. Now think about it, seriously.
Yeah.
But you have 100% conviction that your mom is your mom.
Yeah. Okay, but so...
Not everything in the world, lack of evidence, 100% evidence, does not mean lack of truth.
Well, yeah, so I mean...
See what I mean?
Going back to what you said, right? You said there are paradigm shifts in science, things that change the way that we view the world, and fundamentally how we keep going into the future.
Yes.
I think making an analogous statement to this scenario, right, where my mother's my mother, I believe it 100%.
Yes.
I think the equivalent paradigm shift would be she tells me, oh, you're adopted.
Yeah.
I'm not going to cry and bitch about it and be like, no, it's a lie. I'd be like, okay, I'd accept it. I agree. And then you move on.
No,
and I think that's...
I agree with that. But speaking of the future, we can all change our ideas in the future. No problem.
And then you move... Yeah.
No problem. But leave that for the future. Today, we must agree on what we have today to be logically consistent. Would you agree? But just because in the future there might be shifts or there might be developments, people say this, right? You can, if you're intellectually honest, you can always change your ideas, correct?
Well, yes, but
like for example, today you know that killing a baby is wrong.
That from the ethical standards of today's
exactly.
time, yes.
Imagine in 50 years there's a paradigm shifts. Maybe you change your idea in the future. Who knows? But today you won't do it because you be logically consistent, right? Same thing is with the idea of a creator. Be logically consistent. The universe has a start. The universe is expanding. The universe therefore is dependent. Every dependent must have an independent. Whether you want to call it God, whether you want to call it the creator, whether you want to call it the designer, it doesn't matter. But it is an independent source, which from it stems everything. A lot of atheists say that this independent source is the universe itself, because you can never run away from the independent source. You can never run away from it because you would fall into paradoxes and contradictions. Some people say that instead of saying God, they say, well, it's the infinite universe model. That's what is going on here. You see what I mean? You can never run away from the idea that there is an independent.
I mean,
if you're intellectually honest.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. It's just, again, right, I think with the idea of saying that we have to stick with something logic-based to get an answer now, I don't necessarily agree with the idea that we need an answer now. I think 100 years ago, part of the reason that you had, certain laws and practices, and again, right, you look in history, there are times when people have gone against science specifically because it went against their religious beliefs, right? Yeah. Because they had such a concrete belief in this is what's right, this is what we believe. Yeah. They, kill some scientists, put them in prison for the rest of their life, whatever. I think...
I mean, even that wouldn't be fair because science is ever developing. Exactly. The claim of religion is that it's objective. Like, for example, in Islam, Islam says it's objective in its morality claims, and the idea of who God is. It's objective. It doesn't change. You understand? It's truth. Truth is truth. 2 + 2 will always be 4. Science is a tool which is ever developing. Science proves truths, but as we agreed, it's ever developing. So if I were to base a society based on a concept that's ever developing, the society wouldn't function.
Well, I mean, okay, so
see what I mean?
So I think that there's 2 camps here, right?
Imagine a world, Robin. Imagine a world. I know you said you're not religious, but imagine a world where there is a religion that it has objective truth. Okay. Okay. Just imagine with me for a second.
Sure.
And this you run a society based off of this objective truth, and science, which is an ever-developing tool, is used in this society
to justify the objective truth.
Of course, and to use as a tool. Wouldn't that make more sense than to just rule out a religion, for example? Even though science, you could argue that science is a religion
in a sense.
Yeah. Wouldn't that make more sense? If I were to prove to you that there's a religion that is
objectively true, yeah.
You would agree, but you would agree, right?
So I get what you're saying, but that's the
but you would agree if that were true, the hypothetical, right?
If there were hypothetically a way to have an objective truth, like everyone in the world could agree that yes, this part is true.
But the thing about objective truth is that everyone in the world doesn't need to agree. That's why it's called objective. It's objective because it's outside of people's opinions.
Well, no, like objective truth is the sky is blue. Right?
Of course.
Everyone, no matter what, says that. You might...
People don't agree with objective truth. Like today, for example, we agree that there's 2 sexes, right?
Sure.
This is just an example, bro. Some people say, no, there's more than 2 sexes. Even though it's objectively not true, people still hold to the belief. But that's the beautiful thing about objectivity, is that it is true outside of opinion.
Well,
you see what I mean? Not everyone needs to agree with it, but there can be objective truth. Like, for example, 1 = 1, 3 = 3. The Christian will say, no, 1 = 3, 3 = 1. What? Do you see what I mean?
So I get what you're saying. So, but I think, again, right, I kind of going back to what I was saying is there's 2 camps, right? One is if the religion is objective and everyone can agree on it, or if it is the truth, then you use science to back it up. And I think that's what was...
science to... Okay, yes.
Right, science to back up religion. I think that's what happened in history. And then we look back at it now in textbooks and stuff, and you see all the shitty things that happened because of it.
Yeah. And but have you studied Islamic history?
Not too deep into it.
So you cannot make a claim based off of all of world religions conflicting with science.
No, I know. So, but I'm just kind of getting into that. So
I know what you're saying.
Because of all the stuff, I naturally kind of steer away from that camp of say that the religions might be true, or one certain religion might be true, and use science to back it up. I personally am of the camp of science is the truth. I mean, it is explaining what is there, not why or
yes.
It's explaining how or what is.
Okay.
And then whatever belief I have stems from that.
Would that be objectivity though?
I believe it to be so.
Imagine if I were to tell you we were living 1,000 years ago, or the scientific community believed the sun, or the which
the Earth was the center of the universe.
Exactly, the geocentric model. Yeah, that was the truth of the time. With later developments, they shifted to the heliocentric. So your truth, which would be only science, it's flipped on its head. So that's the reason why I tell you that science is a tool we use. It's not the thing.
Well, yeah, but I think modern day scientists are more willing to accept a paradigm. I think because we have thousands of years of evidence, I think nowadays we're not going to prosecute someone who makes a grand claim. I think
people, you'd be surprised, bro. History doesn't repeat, but they say it rhymes. So there's a lot of stuff that happens today that it's crazy that it's happening, and you're like, bro, this sounds like the olden days. You know what I mean?
I mean, so like my example of how
look how they're killing the Palestinians, for example.
Okay.
You would have never thought. Remember like when we were in elementary school, and they were saying, we would all say like, what would we do during the Nazi times? You know what I mean? People would ask that question.
Okay.
Look at now the Palestinians. Babies literally being blown up, and it's being supported by the international community. That's what I'm saying. These things are ever developing and they're ever changing. The idea that there's one creator is in the Quran. There's an argument that God gives. By the way, the Quran is not like the Bible in the sense that it was written by man and different accounts of different men. No, the Quran is verbatim word of God conveyed to the Prophet Muhammad. Conveyed to the Muslims. You see it?
It hasn't been like rewritten.
Exactly. It's preserved from the day that it was revealed. Not even one pronunciation of the letter has been changed. Today, there's between 10 to 20 million memorizers of the Quran. And the Quran says, أَمْ خُلِقُوا مِنْ غَيْرِ شَيْءٍ أَمْ هُمُ الْخَالِقُونَ. Were they created from nothing, or were they themselves the creator of themselves? أَمْ خُلِقُوا مِنْ غَيْرِ شَيْءٍ. Were they created from nothing? أَمْ هُمُ الْخَالِقُونَ. Or are they the creator of themselves? أَمْ خُلِقُوا مِنْ غَيْرِ شَيْءٍ أَمْ هُمُ الْخَالِقُونَ أَمْ خَلَقُوا السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ بَلْ لَا يُوقِنُونَ. Did they create the heavens and the earth? Nay, they are not certain.
Okay.
And look at science. It's ever developing. No one has certainties. God says, were you the creator of yourselves? Or were you created from nothing? These are questions for people to think about.
Okay.
You know what I mean? We were not created from nothing. We didn't come from nothing. Because it would go against our logic. That something can come from nothing.
Okay.
Or were they themselves the creator of themselves? That would be like, for example, what Hamza Torta says. It's like a mother giving birth to herself. Paradox.
Yeah. Okay.
The logical conclusion you can come to is that, no, we were created. Like how everything else in the world was created. Like how this drink was created. Like how your jacket was created. Like how you're created.
Well, I mean, I think the idea of, again, right, it's something having a beginning, something having an end. I think, I don't know if I necessarily think of it this way, but I mean, one way...
You're more of an agnostic than an atheist, I would say, right?
What is that?
Agnostic is just, you believe there's something, but you don't really know. You're not certain.
I wouldn't say that.
So you're a atheist in the sense that you do not believe in God. You say there is no God, and there's proof for there is no God.
Well, so again, right? I'm not saying that there is no proof that there is none. I'm saying that there's not proof that there is.
That there's not proof that there is. Okay, what's your standard of proof?
Well, proof is like, right?
Like, what would I need to do to prove to you something?
Well, that's the thing, right? I mean, at what point do you call it divine, or something like that?
Okay.
We know gravity is real because I drop this cup, it falls, right?
Okay. But that's not using science.
What do you mean? It's empirical observation.
You can't see gravity. You can't put it under a microscope.
Well, we can see gravitational waves now, right? I mean, the LIGO experiments have shown, like.
But when you drop this, you don't see gravity. You see the effects of gravity.
Well, yeah, it's not visible to you.
Even today, There are scholars that debate if gravity is even a real thing. Are you familiar with those debates?
No real scientist is gonna say that.
No. But there are people that argue these things. For example, in the world of math, there are people that argue, is infinity real in the real world? You see what I mean?
Well, yeah, but that's more of a philosophical debate.
What is gravity?
It's a wave.
Okay, but what is it?
Well, okay, so we're still. I mean,
you see what I'm saying? You see the effects of gravity. You don't see gravity itself. Like I can't say, okay, where's gravity? Where's the microscope? Let's examine it.
Well, okay, so like, just because I can't tell you specifically what particle carries a gravity wave or causes it or something like that, doesn't mean that it's not real or that it's.
I agree with that. That's my point. That's why God, you can see the effects of God. The universe, the earth, the sun, these are effects of God. I cannot, as a Muslim, we don't say that you can literally see God. You understand?
You see the effects.
Of course.
Yeah, okay.
You see the effects, which is the creation. You see the effects, which are the prophets. You see the effects, which are the revelations and these things, prophecies and these things. These are effects. These are things that you can observe objectively and you can come to conclusions on. See what I mean? Like, for example, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, may peace be upon him, he gave prophecies. I'll tell you one of them. Keep in mind, 1400 years ago, the Prophet was here 1400 years ago. He said, towards the end of the times, the barefooted Bedouins, the Arabs, will be competing to build skyscrapers. Where's the tallest building in the world today?
Dubai.
The Burj Khalifa, right? The Arabs.
Yeah.
50 years ago, if you were to go to Dubai, it was a desert.
Yeah.
And during his time, skyscrapers weren't a thing. Nor were the Arabs known to have money. They were all poor Bedouins. They were all like sheep herders.
Yeah.
So this is a bold claim. This is a prophecy of him. And the Arabs would have never been able to build those skyscrapers without the discovery of oil.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean? There's another prophecy that towards the end of times, the earth will throw up its treasures for you. Speaking to the Arabs, which is, they say this is oil. See what I mean?
I get what you're saying.
These are different prophecies of the Prophet Muhammad. Another prophecy is that in the Quran, during that time, there was basically a paradigm shift in the world powers. You had the Persian Empire, you had the Roman Empire, and they were going back and forth. Basically, in that time, the Persians, before the conflict happened, the Quran, a verse of the Quran was revealed that the Romans will defeat the Persians in 3 to 9 years. And during that time, everyone saw that the Persians were beating the Romans. It was like done deal. Imagine, it was done deal.
Yeah.
And the non-believing Arabs at the time, that didn't believe in the Prophet Muhammad, they were mocking the Muslims. They said, "Hey, look what your Prophet said. He said that these guys are going to beat these guys, and they're done. They're losing." They were mocking them. What ended up happening? The Roman Empire beat the Persian Empire against all odds. Like when you see these things, these are shocking prophecies. Imagine the Prophet Muhammad, he put the whole religion's idea on the line. Imagine if there's one prophecy that's gone, you're a liar. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
These are just different prophecies. You see what I mean?
I get what you're saying.
In the Quran, there are scientific miracles. For example, the Quran describes how the human embryo is developed. Imagine.
Like ahead of time, you're saying.
1400 years ago, before the invention of X-ray machines, the development of the human embryo from a clot to like a leech-looking thing was described in great detail in the Quran, in a beautiful rhythmic way where you would never think that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ wrote this, because he couldn't read or write. He couldn't read or write. Imagine during the time of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he became a prophet at the age of 40. He lived with his people for 40 years. They knew him as what? As-Sadiq al-Amin, the trustworthy and the truthful. That's what they called him for 40 years of his life. He went to them when he became a prophet, when God revealed to him. He went on a mountain. He said to the people, "If I were to tell you behind you is an army coming to attack you, would you believe me?" They said, "Of course we would believe you. We've never known you to be a liar." He said, "I have came with something bigger than this. I am a prophet of God." And they literally said, oh, we've never known you to say a truth. Imagine in the same second. So these are just prophecies of the Prophet Muhammad. And the Prophet Muhammad, they came to him, they told him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they said to him, what do you want? When he was gaining a little bit of traction. They said, what do you want? Because he was from the noble lineage to where he was like in the top politician, you would say. They said, what do you want? Do you want woman? We'll give you woman. Do you want power? We'll give you power. We'll make you our leader. Do you want money? We'll give you money. But leave what you're saying. Leave this Islam. Leave this worshipping one God thing. He said, by God, if you were to give me the sun in my right and the moon in my left, I would not leave this. Imagine if this was a man looking for power or for fame or for money or for women. You see what I mean?
I mean,
these are just seeds for you just to think about. Because you haven't researched Islam.
No, I'm not.
Yes.
Not too familiar.
These are just things for you to think about.
Yeah.
What did the Prophet Muhammad come with? He said there's only one God. He said when we die, we're going to go back to this God. What are we going to do when we're going to die? We're just going to turn into nothing? We're just going to be dust? Imagine this idea of consciousness where you are experiencing things that I don't experience. Science can never tell us what you feel when you drink this coffee, what you taste, your feelings of happiness. And it can say that there's brainwaves going on and there's caffeine rising but it can never tell the people what your first person subjective experience is. This is consciousness. It's the soul.
Okay.
You see what I mean? And that can only be explained with the divine. These questions of morality, is there objective morality or is not?
Well, I mean, so again, right?
All of these things are explained when there is a independent source. You see what I mean? Objectivity.
This is like the main conflict that I had with it it's just a fundamental difference in the way we think about it, right? I feel like in your case, right, the idea of the divine or something that is an objective truth helps everything else become, help everything else become more understandable and logical.
Yes.
Whereas in my view, I don't like the idea of assuming this one thing is true already and having everything else follow after that.
But we're not assuming. We're not on a whim, Robin. No, because we said earlier that there's different types of proofs that you can be 100% certain. Earlier, you even said that you believe your mom is your mom with zero proof.
Well, I mean,
you see what I mean?
Certificates and
that can be forged.
Baby.
No, that can.
Sorry, can I interview? It just sounds like you just don't want to have faith. Like it sounds like that's what the problem.
Well, I mean,
no. The thing is, Robin. Look, I know what you're saying, bro. Bro, I spoke to many Christians before. You are a logical person. Christianity, due to its paradoxical nature, scars a lot of people.
Well, so like I'm not saying that.
Do you know what I mean?
It's just like. Again, right?
I'm saying a lot of people I speak to, it happens to me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Like, no offense to like your belief or anything.
No,
but, like,
no problem. Go ahead.
The way that I view it, right? I think we started the conversation. You kind of talked about Christianity and like it's paradoxical.
Yeah.
Right. A big thing is why is it this way? Well, it just is.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And to me, when you say that, you know, that Islam is like the truth and this is
objectivity. Yes.
That you just accept it and everything else comes from that.
Now we accept it. Like for example, if you were to ask me, Khalid, why do you believe what you believe? Simply, I believe what I believe because it's logical to me. I'll tell you why. When I understand that the universe is dependent and that it had a start and it's expanding, I understand that if it's dependent, there must be independence. That's enough for me to understand that, okay, there must be an independent source. And when I see, for example, the creation, when I see humans, when I see questions of morality, for example, who's right, who's wrong, it all makes sense to me when there is one God, when there's one creator. All of these outside issues make sense.
Well, yeah, again, I get that.
Yeah,
for me, it doesn't.
And I
can't do that.
And I don't believe that, like for example, the idea of the independent. This is something that I'm 100% convinced of. Logically, the universe is not infinite. Logically, the universe started. Therefore, it must have a cause.
Well, I mean, I think like
let's agree on that before we leave. Do you agree that the universe was caused?
Like in the current state, yeah, you can think of it.
Yeah.
Okay, sure.
So this thing that you just said, this is what we believe is God.
Okay.
You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So we're not jumping to whims. It's logical. The thing that you literally just said, this independent, that literal thing is what we say is Allah, God, the independent.
So, like, I mean, from my standpoint, right, in the way that I've like studied it and in the science that I've seen,
Yes.
right, matter's always been there. It doesn't get created or destroyed. So when there was the Big Bang, it wasn't that there was nothing there. Everything was still there, just contained in this other form that we can't explain in our current view of the world. Right, from our tiny standpoint, from the way, like, our, what do you call it, capacity for knowledge with our brain.
Are you saying that that source was infinite?
I'm not necessarily saying it's infinite, but
what
if it has always been there?
No, that's what infinite is. That's eternal. That's eternality.
Yes.
The thing is that the model doesn't say that. The science doesn't say that.
Well,
the model
says anything before the Big Bang, right? It's beyond our.
That's
scope.
my point, bro. If you say the beginning of the Big Bang was carbon and hydrogen and these chemical molecules or whatever, the question is, what made that?
Well, okay, so who says it had to be made? Why?
Because the nature of the carbon and the hydrogen is that it is a dependent. It doesn't have the attributes of independency.
Well, so before there was hydrogen and carbons, right? What in the Big Bang, we don't think of it as, a bunch of atoms. They might have not have been able to form.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it was energy. As the energy cools, it condenses.
That energy. What created the energy?
I mean, we don't necessarily have to say that it was created. What if it's?
That's what the Big Bang. The Big Bang is something that there was a singularity that started, exploded, Big Bang to what the universe is
today. Yes.
Exactly. Okay. Science cannot go to what's before the Big Bang because it's outside the scope of science, of time and space. Before the Big Bang is outside the scope of time and space because there was none. It was zilt. What is the word? Zilt.
Well, that's my argument. I'm not saying that it wasn't there. It was there, but contained in a smaller space.
Well, you would have to argue with the theorists of the Big Bang, not with me, because you see what I mean. Going on the current model that the universe started, and that it's expanding, it means dependency. Dependency naturally relies on independence. This independence is what we say is God. You see what I'm saying?
Okay, so I have to go real quick.
Yeah, no problem.
My final thought on it, right?
Yeah.
I think your way of explaining it, right?
Yeah.
If there was a beginning, it implies that there was this divine or a higher being.
Not necessarily, because I know atheists have issues with these words. That's why I say independent.
Yeah, okay. Well, an independence that has always been there.
Yes.
Right? But the way I view it, it's not that there was an independence that was always there that started the universe. I'm just saying that the matter, the energy that we know today that has always been here, it can't be created or destroyed, was there, and it always has been there.
So
whether it was in a singularity or a Big Bang, or it's a recursive thing, one universe turning into another, however it is, I just think that maybe it's always been there. And I can't.
So you don't believe in the Big Bang theory anymore? You don't believe that you believe that these compounds were always there?
The energy was.
Yeah, but this is a problem you need to bring up with the scientists, not with me.
Well, they don't say that there was nothing.
Of course they do.
No, they don't.
The Big Bang, before the Big Bang, was nothing. The scientists agree on this.
No, that's not what it is.
The scientists, that's why they ascribe to what was before the Big Bang was a multi-universe theory, because they know that. Because if they were saying what you're saying, they would say that no, it was always there.
I mean, I think we're at.
They would say the energy is always there. You know what I mean?
We're at a fundamental impasse here. We're like.
I have no problem, bro.
Yeah.
But listen, I enjoy the conversation.
Yeah.
This is the Quran in English, because you haven't researched Quran, you haven't researched Islam. This is English translations for people like yourselves, and hopefully this will give you some answers. It's a gift from me to you. Okay.
Cool.
Thank you, bro.
I will look into it.
And we're here Fridays. If you ever want to come back, you read up, you have a question, come back.
Yeah, I see y'all standing here. Yeah.
Thank you, bro. Now we're friends now, right?
Sure.
All right, bro. Thank you, Robin. Khalid.
Khalid?
Khalid. Yeah.
Okay. Nice.
Do you know in the Philippines, most likely 5, 6, 7 generations ago, they were Muslim, your ancestors?
The southern region is, mostly Muslim.
Are you from
the trades?
Yeah. Are you from where, north or south?
I think my family is from more like the central region, like near Manila.
Maybe your 6th grandfather might have been Muslim.
Maybe.
And your Mexican descent, the Mexicans, a big portion of them come from Spain.
And the Spanish, yeah.
And the Spanish were, for 800 years, were Muslims. Majority of Spain.
Yeah.
So, your natural inclination in your blood, you might have that Muslim blood in you, bro. I'm being serious. So just research it with an open mind. And if you see truth, you accept truth.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Sounds fair?
Yeah, no.
Thank you, bro. Have a good day, Robin. Yeah. You have a good day.